Welcome to Raye the Quirky HSP's podcast, where I get real about life as a highly sensitive person. If you are an empath, an introvert, or just trying to navigate this overstimulating world without losing your cool, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Raye, lover of deep conversations, sarcastic humor, and the more than occasional solo adventure. So grab a cup of tea, settle in, and let's talk about embracing our sensitivity in all its quirky, beautiful forms. Alright guys, it's Raye, the Quirky HSP, and I'm back for my second episode. And I'm actually liking this format a whole lot better. I can come in, I just got off work, and I hadn't even had a chance to decompress. So I thought I'd sit down and just go ahead and knock out this podcast for the day. Feel like I've done something productive for myself, since I just worked 8 hours and did a lot of productivity for the man. So at any rate, yeah, this is something I put on my YouTube short. This is a month out of me procrastinating, trying to figure out how the best way to do it, Virgo that I am. And so, yeah, I'm just going to talk about it. I'm not going to try to do any visuals. I had a whole lot of things in my head that I was going to try to do. And I'm just going to do it this way. So getting into it, this episode is going to be a discussion about the movie Dumbo, the cartoon Dumbo from 1923, somewhere back in there. My parents were born in 1943, so my parents are 81. So this movie is over almost 100 years old. And since I started the first podcast, to give you a little bit of insight of who I am, I haven't really delved in a lot because I did do an actual podcast, video podcast on YouTube. Go to my YouTube, Raye the Quirky HSP, and you will see that episode where I give you a background about my parentage and me being adopted and all of that good stuff. So I won't go back and beat a dead horse because that's dead. It's been 30 years ago. So I'm going to move forward and just continue to build on my realization of becoming an HSP, or realizing that I've been one all this time. And as I was listening to Elaine Aron's book, and it really brought back memories of my childhood. And I can't say at what point in the last 4 years I thought about the movie Dumbo, but it's weird how some memories come back to you. Ever had a memory come back to you that you had from your childhood that you hadn't thought about in years? I mean, decades. And then all of a sudden it just shows up out of nowhere, where that's kind of how this happened. And I do remember being a kid, and I do remember watching Dumbo. I don't remember how old I was. I don't know if I was in school. I would think that I was in school, but I could have been at home. I don't know. But I do remember how I felt. And as I said, I hadn't thought about this movie in a whole long time. I'm grown. And when it came back to me, I just remember feeling like, yeah, I didn't like that movie. And the reason why I didn't like it, if anybody hasn't seen the movie Dumbo, if you're of a certain age and you're a millennial, or you're listening to this in your 20s or 30s, you may not have seen this cartoon. You may have seen the cartoon character, but as far as the story behind it, it was a little elephant that, of course, came with the aid of a stork. Back then, everything was a lot of taboos on sexuality and things like that back in the 20s. So people weren't born from screwing. People were born, or animals, and everything was pretty much, the stork brought the baby, the baby animal or whatever to the parents' home by way of a stork. So the mother of Dumbo, or actually good trivia that I didn't remember about it, but his name is actually Jumbo with a J, not Dumbo with a D. And I didn't remember this. I actually watched this again on Disney Plus last month or the month before I decided to do the podcast, because I wanted to refresh myself on what I thought I remembered. And funny enough, when the movie came on, or prior to the movie coming on, there was a disclaimer that came at the beginning of the video, and it was essentially saying, hey, we apologize for the content, and we realize now, or whether I'm saying now, but we realize that there are some things in here that could be offensive, but basically we feel like this could be a learning tool for you guys to know that it's not right to treat people this way. So as I'm watching this, I'm like, wait a minute. So I was feeling like what I was feeling like as a kid. So I start watching this cartoon. And of course it starts the way that it does. And Jumbo is brought by the stork, and he lands in the little barn or whatever of the circus thing for his mother to, find him and start loving and nurturing him. And when he comes out of the blanket, all of the older, and mind you, these are actually grown, okay, these grown animals, these grown women, supposed to be nurturers, but they see his ears, which I thought were so adorable and cute as a kid, and I still think they're cute, and quirky, because I'm quirky. But they saw his ears, and it was just laughter and just, oh my God. And I'm thinking as a child, and even now, like, how could you? You guys, you big elephants, are laughing at this woman's child. It really affected me. And the more I think about it, the more I get a little pissed off about it. Because that's just how quirky and sensitive I am. But I loved how his mother, the mother elephant of Jumbo, took him in. She didn't seem to care what anybody thought about what her baby looked like and how big his ears were. And she nurtured him. And I'm not going to go into all of that. But there were some other things about that movie that I didn't remember. But when I saw it again, when I watched it a couple of months ago, there were other things that were pretty offensive in there. And one other thing that stood out were the workers. Now, the white workers, the people who were not of color, they had faces, they had eyes, they had definition in their faces, nose, teeth, mouth, could speak, whatever. And when they showed the workers, the actual people that were, taking care of the animals on the circus, I think Dumbo they were in a circus. So, but the people that were taking care of the animals and the stagehands and the laborers, they had dark skin like mine. They had the outline of a face, but they didn't have a face. There was nothing there. They didn't have a nose. They didn't have eyes. And I'm thinking that's deliberate. That's pretty, I can say a lot of different things about what I think that is, but it was a lot of things that were offensive. And the fact that whoever redistributed this cartoon would leave such a disclaimer at the beginning, I don't know really what to say or how to feel about that. I guess to leave it intact the way that it is, so anyone who could see it again or watch it again would be able to decide for themselves how they felt about it, and it not be distorted or to assume or act like what happened in the past as far as the movie and how it was created is now, something different. So I guess I can appreciate it on that level alone. But that movie it touched me greatly. And from that's pretty much my story about Dumbo. But when it comes to movies, as a HSP and a highly sensitive person, there's, for me at least, and I know a few people that I know that are HSPs and empaths, there's certain things that we just can't watch. So again, it wasn't clear to me that I was an empath or an HSP growing up, but as I look back at my childhood, look back at my teenage years, and just the way that I was and what I digested as far as content on television. Of course, the internet and stuff was not around when I was a kid. It wasn't around until I was about 26. But I'm speaking about when I was a teenager, when I was an adolescent, when I was in, 4th, 5th grade, and how things affected me in my life and things that I watched on television. I wasn't really a sci-fi kind of person. I didn't watch Star Wars. I didn't watch Star Trek. That didn't interest me. I was more into, I guess, dramas and comedies, documentaries. I like watching TV with my father, so I watched Hill Street Blues and just things that made you laugh. Archie Bunker, of course, that was on the TV, Jeffersons, all those kind of situation comedies that were around in the 70s and 80s. But I chose in my high school years when Freddy Krueger was out and Halloween. Halloween was more my older brother's time period with Jamie Lee Curtis when she was younger. My brother was 10 years older than me, so that's more his era. But what is that movie? Freddy Krueger, and I forgot the other one that was out around that time. I watched Freddy Krueger, but after that, I just vowed to myself I didn't like the way that I felt after watching scary movies. And so I just chose not to. I slipped up and watched The Devil's Advocate one night. I had said to myself I was not going to watch this movie. And I slipped up and watched this movie, and when the lady that's on, I don't know if she still is a coroner on Law and Order, but the black lady, when her face and everything distorted, I just said to myself, that's what you get for watching this movie. I couldn't, certain things I cannot watch. There's certain movies, even if they're not horror movies, because they have a lot of content and emotion to them, there are certain movies that I can't watch a second time. Mississippi Burning is not a movie that I've watched since college. And that movie that Lena Waithe made with the couple that met on the application, the dating app, and they met and end up, I don't want to spoil it for anybody who hasn't seen it, but the dating nightmare that they ended up being on, it was so intense of a movie that I couldn't watch it a second time. I'd like to, but I don't know that I can bring myself to watch it because it was emotionally really, really charged for me. So yeah, well, we are about halfway through this podcast, and I'm glad that I finally had a chance to get that off my chest and get it actually in a format that I could share it with you guys. But I also want to talk about why I am doing this podcast again, and it is to, I guess, I am wanting to create content for someone who was in my position, let's say if you're in your teens or 20s, and you're figuring out yourself, and you wonder why you do certain things, and you don't really have anyone to talk to, and you want to, maybe this is all new for me, so I'm open to calling in, setting up a schedule where you can call in and talk with me and share, your problems, your issues, something that's on your mind. If you're second guessing yourself about anything, this is a safe space. I wish I had a place like this to come to when I was questioning myself, when people were questioning me about why I did certain things. And now after I listened to that audiobook, Elaine Aron's The Highly Sensitive Person, and I saw myself as a child, I saw myself as a young person, I saw myself as even in my 30s and 40s more recently, and the questions that I didn't even have the words to form the questions about why I felt the way that I did. But I am so grateful for Elaine Aron and her book to break it down and to give me some insight into, why I've had some of the relationships that I've had. I am not a lesbian. I have been with a woman. I am so free to be able to say it now. I am not attracted to women naturally. My natural inclination is to men. And for a few years, I say probably a good 10 years out of my life, maybe longer, I was caught up with the relationships of friends, acquaintances, and their projection of love. And I'm speaking about females or women. I want to say females because that is such a crass term to use when we discuss ourselves. So forgive me. But women specifically that would be in their trauma, be in their whatever. I don't have a word for what they would be in, but I found myself caught up in relationships with women that never really meant anything, but the physicality was more, I guess, the ratio of physicality versus a true relationship. The physicality was more. It was probably 80 to 10% relationship. And with me, I guess, as I understand it now, as looking for love and matching energies or absorbing energy and not really understanding because it wasn't articulated what truly was going on. Of course, as I said, because we're both in a traumatic situation and dealing through our traumas with people. But it took me listening to Elaine Aron's audiobook for me to understand that no, I'm not a victim, but I do understand how I allowed myself to be drawn in to the energies of women that were not, and this is old crazy. I know you're gonna look at the image and to be like, wait a minute, I thought we were talking about Dumbo. But as my podcast description says, I'm talking about any and everything. So if you can hang with me through my tangents, it'll make sense. But I'm still, I guess, feeling myself out and figuring out what I want to talk about. But I do want to just get this out because it's on my mind now, and I'm not going to filter what I think about and what comes out my mouth when it does. So yeah, as I was saying, after listening to the entire audiobook and giving myself grace and not beating myself up, but asking mentally as I'm listening to each chapter, okay, but why did this happen? So why was I open to being with this person if I say I'm not a lesbian? How could I have allowed myself to go so far? Why do I still have feelings for this person when it's not that? Well, okay, feelings are feelings. But let's dissect those feelings. And once I had a chance to step away from being around these people, and during COVID, as I said, it's 2020, so I'm alone. I'm working on my band. I'm being the introvert at this time and creating something that is custom for my lifestyle. And listening to this audiobook and dissecting my relationships, not just with people, non-family members, but also my family members and my relationships with my mother. And why is my relationship with both of my mothers so jacked up? And, how is it that it can be jacked up for as long as it has? And despite our efforts or my efforts or their efforts at whatever time they felt like they were, trying. But it really, I can't stress it enough. I am really appreciative of that book because I knew myself, I know myself, but I had so many questions that I could not answer if someone were to ask me, why do I do certain things? Now I have those answers. I don't make any apologies for my past. I don't have any regrets for the relationships and the things that I have gone through in my life. Of course, yeah, they were all learning experiences. I am more sure-footed in who I am as an individual now. I no longer care about what people think, which is why I'm easily able to discuss this now when 5 years ago, maybe even 10 years ago, you couldn't pay me to talk about what I'm willing to talk about now on this podcast and even in person. But it's something about being free. Is no better feeling than being free and being not unapologetically free to be who you are. And despite what others may think about you, despite what other people may judge you about, without having a conversation with me, you can keep that over there, in my opinion. If you're going to want to have a conversation, but you're going to judge me before we actually do have one, then cool. We're not going to be, good cohorts, I guess. I'll say it that way. What else? Had a good day at work. People were cordial for the most part. I don't like working the gates because I just don't like working the gates. There's a whole lot of stuff, politics that come with working the gates and getting the flight out on time and making sure that certain things are done in a timely manner to get the flight out on time. So it's getting easier. It's not the aspect of actually doing the work at the gates. And today it wasn't too busy. It's, I guess, the influx of energy. That's what I don't care for. But I got a year and a half left, so I'm going to make the best of it. Do what I need to do to get to these free flight benefits. That's the goal. I got a year and a half left. I started in the most opportune time. I started right before I started in 2015, so right before I turned 45, I started. So, 2016 rather, I'm sorry. So by the time I retire, 2026, I will be over 45. I actually will be close to 46. So, the deal is you work 10 years, your age plus those 10 years has to equal 65. I will be 66 that year, so I will be past my birthday. In 2025, I will be 55. So 55 plus the 10 years at the time that it will be my anniversary will be enough time for me to say I'm out, and then I can do more of this. I can do more of one-on-one counseling or just being there. I'm not a licensed anything when it comes to life coaching or anything like that, but I can say I've lived long enough to be able to teach you something, give you a little bit of wisdom, and share with you my experiences. So that's all I am asking to do is let me be a safe place for you, a safe space. And so I already have now on my website, I have 3 separate counseling spots, one for 15 minutes. If you want to just feel me out, we can have a little consultation. You can feel my energy out, and you can see whether, we're a good fit to talk with one another at length. And if you do decide, okay, she's cool enough to chat with, I think I can trust her, and you can, then you can, bump it up to the 30-minute session. I am offering my book along with this bundle of a 30-minute session for $65, and included with that would be my book. And if you decide, hey, I really would like to talk with you more at length than just 30 minutes, we might get into something that takes a little longer. I have 1-hour sessions, and those sessions are $100, and they come with a free t-shirt. I have a few t-shirts. I'm pretty quirky, but I have a few t-shirts that I've designed, and they're on my website, and my website is the number 3, and it's not the number 3 spelled out. It's actually 3SARAYE.com, and you can go through there and see the book bundles. You can set up an appointment. You can see the different types of t-shirts and choose which one you want. And I am looking forward to the rest of my life and being able to provide content to and for you. My goal is to bring on people who are just as quirky as I am, who have been through some things. I have my next episode is going to be, I already have it. I just got to work on the audio and convert it from the video. But it's going to be one of my coworkers from LA, from LAX, where I transferred from. And she's a good friend of mine. I started working at the airport about a year and a half after she started working there. We're both from Georgia, so we kind of connected on that. And she loves to travel, and I like to travel. We've been on a few trips together, so her personality is really easy and laid back. And she's a fellow introvert, and she just told me she's also an empath. I don't think she had realized that she was. So I asked her during the podcast or after the podcast was done, and we were still talking, and I said, hey, do you think that you're an empath? I knew that she was an introvert. I could clearly see that. But I couldn't tell whether she was an empath or not. So I asked her. She considered it. She thought about it. I guess she did her research and hit me back and was like, yeah, I actually am an empath. And of course, it makes sense to me because, having known her now for about 8 years, she stays to herself. Introverts do that. She's a lot more reserved than I am. And we had a discussion about that, which will be the next podcast. So you guys will be introduced to some people that I work with and some people that I've kind of met along the way. I have another coworker that I'm hoping to get her on to a podcast soon. We got to get our schedules together. She's also in LA, and she has had my book. She read my book, and I'm just waiting for her. She said she's got a compilation of questions she's got to get together to ask me about my book. So I'm looking forward to, I guess, giving her clarity on anything she may have asked or wondered after reading my book, because I think she read my book last year. So it's been out since May of last year. It's on Amazon. The link is also in my website, or on my website. I'm also doing a blog post that's on there that gives a little bit more clarity to empaths and our quirky lifestyle and why we do some of the things we do. And a lot of these blog posts that I'm doing or I'm creating come from me just dissecting myself, dissecting my own personality. So that's going to be interesting. If you want to read those, they are definitely already on my website. Again, theresaraye.com. So I'd love for you to check them out. I'd love for you to leave a comment. Follow me on my podcast. I just figured that out, how to get on different platforms. So you can find me on Spotify. You can find me, I think I'm on Amazon Music. I am on iTunes. I think I'm on Apple, but I got to check that and see. But I'm on different different platforms rather. I'm also on my own website, so you want to go in and look at the latest or the last one, not this one. I don't know. This one I may stick on my website, but as far as monetization and all of that stuff goes, I can't monetize myself. Not yet anyway, but that is the goal. So I am I'm looking at this thing while I'm talking to you guys. I'm looking at my editing software, and not say that I'm just trying to fill space, but I just don't want to run over. But I don't know. I'm just sitting here and I'm just excited about starting this podcast, seeing the how many people I can help, how much of a community I can build. And even though I don't have any structure, it looks like I don't have any structure right now. I've just been told to just hit the button and record and just continue to do content. And of course, it'll get better. Of course, I'll have structure in the future. But right now, if my voice is not disturbing to you, and if you feel like it is something that you can listen to and you be willing to come back and listen to every Sunday, I am going to make it a point to upload an audio podcast. I don't know, at some point, I guess maybe I will get back into doing a video podcast. But until I have enough followers, those of you who are interested enough in coming back consistently and engaging with me and talking to me and giving me some topics that I can talk about. Oops, sorry, with all my T's and P's and whatnot into this microphone. But yeah, if you guys can give me something to discuss, something that's on your mind that you want me to delve into, maybe do some research in. I love doing that sort of thing. I'm a Virgo, and Yeah, some would say I'm a perfectionist, which is probably why it's taken me this long to do the second podcast. But I'm here for you. Let me figure some things out. I will bring you content that is sure to be entertaining, informative. If I could, I guess the goal, I'm going to put it out there and into the universe right now, is I'd love to get Miss Elaine Aaron on an interview. That would be awesome. So if anybody has access to Miss Aaron, if you happen to listen to this and you're closer in that 6 degree of separation thing that we have going on in the world, and you're close enough to her that you could say, hey, somebody's got a new podcast out and she's called the Quirky HSP, and she's mentioned that she'd love to have you on her podcast. I'd love to be able to ask her some questions. I'd love to be able to figure out how to take callers who may have questions. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. What else am I on? My own website. I am on TikTok, but not so much. I mean, I am on there, but I'm still figuring out this new platform and branding. And so I do a lot of time I'm doing research. I'm listening to audibles, still figuring out the social media and marketing and all of that. So yeah, I appreciate you guys listening thus far. I am going to end it for now. Thank you for your time. This has been mine. And come back and see me next week. I'll be here if you will. Take care. Leave me a message. Leave me a comment. I'd love to hear from you. Peace. Thanks for hanging out with me today on Raye the Quirky HSP podcast. If today's episode made you feel seen, heard, or maybe just a little less alone, make sure to hit that follow link, then that plus sign, and if you're feeling generous, hit that share and enlighten a friend. And reviews don't hurt. They only help my podcast to grow, so go on and do that too, please. And hey, I'd love to hear from you. Reach out to my website. It is threesaraye.com. That's the number 3, SARAYE.com. Please share your thoughts. Sign up there to be notified of when I move and how I move, and let me know what topics you'd love for me to dive into next. Remember, your sensitivity isn't a flaw. It's your superpower. Until next time, stay quirky, stay kind, and keep shining.